welcome to the PICATalk podcast. PICA is a trade association representing the printing, converting, and graphic communications industry in North and South Carolina. PICATalk is brought to you by the platinum sponsors, Domtar, Prisco, Athens Paper, Mac Papers and Packaging, Manchester Industries, Recycling Management Resources, and Case Paper. I am Terry McKee, Director of Member Engagement at PICA. Today, I am thrilled to have Sarah Trakas and Emily Young from Employers Advantage, a trusted human resource partner made available through PICA membership, on today's episode of PICATalk. Today, we're chatting about something that's very important in this day and age, recruiting across generations, specifically concerning the printing industry. Emily and Sarah, welcome to PICATalk.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. Emily and Sarah, why is it important for print industry employers to think about recruiting across generations?
Yeah, so this is such an important question. I'm so glad that we're starting here, but I want to backtrack a little bit and I just want to
Sure.
do a quick pop quiz. So, out of all of the generations, which generation do you think has the most number of people in the current workforce?
Ooh,
Hmm.
I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna say Gen X, the generation of Gen X.
Terry, any
I have to
ideas or
say
anything?
my generation, Gen X.
Okay. So super, super close. Millennials are going to be the
Oh,
first. They have about 36% of the current workforce, followed by Gen X. Of course, they have about 31. And according to the Department of Labor, boomers are about 15. And I know that people are often thinking that, oh, boomers are aging out of the workforce. But funny enough, they're actually sticking it out a little bit longer than previous generations and still make up about 15%. So
yeah.
just thought I'd throw that out there. I think that that's really important to know before we really get started, right? So,
That's a
what was
great fun
your,
fact to
can you
have.
circle back to your question?
Sure. With all the generations, we have Gen Z and Gen Alpha and millennials and representing Gen X. And why is it important for print industry employers to think about recruiting across all these generations?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think it's a strategic business move, right? There's so many benefits to having a generational diverse workforce, specifically for the printing industry, where I know creativity and innovation are going to be really high on the radar and really what you're looking for. Having more diversity in the workforce, you have higher profitability. So just from a business perspective, I think that that's really important to mention. So.
Yeah. I would second that because I think a lot of times we skim past the fact that multi-generational workforce, it alarms a lot of leaders in the workspace because you have that multi-generational ways of communicating. You have the ways, kind of that headbutting, I guess you could say, the employee relational issues. But it's really important for us to focus on the fact that there is the previous workforce who has a lot of valuable knowledge, and they have that historical approach to the industry. And you have the newer generations coming into the workforce who are bringing the new approaches. They're enlightening, the previous workforce, the previous generations and workforce on new ways to approach doing things. And so I think it's good to have the cross-generational overlap so that they can teach each other and that you can expand and grow with the industry, which is really ever evolving, especially with the various technologies that are coming out. So I think it's very important, as Sarah said, it makes you more profitable, just to start recruiting all generations.
Yeah, having that
Absolutely.
cross-functional learning, being able to have, different people in the workforce be able to teach each other something, I think that that's invaluable and definitely adds, more thinking for future proofing for your company. So important stuff.
Right. Emily mentioned headbutting, which was amusing to me because there's a lot of that going on, in between these groups. So how do communication preferences differ across these generational groups?
Yeah, so different generations, I think that they have preferred communication styles, right? So going to boomers, think auditory. So they like to face-to-face communication, being able to hear, talking one-on-one on the call, versus say maybe, millennials or Gen Zs, they're gonna like more of that written digital communication. So whether that be Snapchat messages or also those collaborative tools like Slack and Teams and things like that, they're going to be really more interested and be more open-minded and respond better to, I think, those communication styles for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think the values that various generations have because they started in the workforce one way, and a lot of generations, they're not scared of change, right? But they need to be taught it. And some generations, especially the newer generations coming in, they grew up with it. That's all they've ever known. And so they come in expecting these previous generations to have these same understanding and abilities. And sometimes that can cause the headbutting because the previous generations, they just need somebody to clue them in on what's going on. And it changes so often. And so I think to Sarah's point, it's really valuable for you as a manager or a leader in that particular department, whatever the case may be, to really focus on not only the generations that you're speaking to, but also focus on who they are as a whole. Have they, really been in a company previously that had a lot of previous generations? So maybe they function and prefer communication the same as those previous generations, or are they straight out of college and they're used to technology, used to the easy Slack message, more that could be an email, not a meeting kind of mindset. So I think it differs, but it also differs in what environment they're coming from.
Yeah.
Sure.
Terry, I'm curious, do
Absolutely.
you have a preferred communication style that you respond best to or that works for you?
Writing things down, but
Yeah.
not in Slack or technology. I prefer like pen and paper,
Mm-hmm.
making lists. I have um, like a paper planner I use. It's all about paper and like just writing things down.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so to break down the generations a little bit more, so Gen X more visual, right? And very
Mhm.
concise to the point. Unnecessary meetings are not what they're looking for. So bullet points, conciseness, having that visual, again, being able to write things down
Right.
or send things in an email. Millennials, it seems like they want more of that digital presence, right? So again, going back to Slack and emails, text messages. But my favorite of all is going to be Gen Zs because they actually don't really care. They don't care if it's over the phone and they don't care if it's in an email. They want whatever is going to be the quickest, whatever is going to be the most efficient. That's really what they're looking for. So, I really like that they're able to, kind of cater their communication style towards everybody else in the workforce. But, us saying all of this, I also think it's really important to mention that not everybody's the same. And so it's easy that, we can do all of this research and studies show, collectively maybe what some of these groups typically like. It's really important to learn your team, learn the individuals on your team. Never make assumptions about what their communication style is based on their generation. Really getting to know them one-on-one, and then, collectively to understand what's going to be best for them and how they're going to respond.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that. Moving on, and we talked about the different ways that these generational groups differ and how they communicate. But how can print companies adjust their recruiting efforts? Talk about recruiting now to appeal to a multi-generational workforce.
Yeah, so I think one way that we can appeal to different generations is through benefits, right? All employees like benefits, doesn't matter what generation you're in. But of course, different benefits can vary by, what generation you're in and what specifically you're interested in. Um, I think over the past couple of years, financial planning benefits have really been on the rise and gaining a lot of momentum. So things like um, debt forgiveness, financial literacy, student loan forgiveness, all of those kinds of things are going to be what I think millennials and Gen Zs are really the most interested in. Another one I thought was interesting was identity theft protection is another one that seems to be on the rise over the past 2 years. And one that I don't think is surprising, but I wish more of my clients would have more of is pet perk benefits. Doesn't matter
Oh,
which generation you're in, everybody loves their pet, right? So whether that be bring your pet to work day, maybe on a Friday, or offering pet insurance. I did have one client offer this, and you would be so surprised at how many candidates asked about it, how many people were like really drawn. Because I think that it goes to show that it's not, the company cares more about the person and not just about their productivity. They care about what they like, which obviously everybody loves their pet again. So some
mm.
interesting things to think about.
Well, do you have any final thoughts on recruiting across the generations?
Yeah, so kind of going back to the pet. So, the number one thing that employees are looking for is medical insurance, medical benefits.
Yes.
But outside, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, mental health benefits are really going to be super popular right now. And something that I can see, moving forward is always going to be, things that employees value. So, even having, bring your pet to work day, people have emotional support animals all the time. So again, I think that
Okay.
that really adds value in that area. But yeah, there's
Mm.
definitely some other things that I think print companies can do as far as the recruiting process, right? To
Mm.
be able to attract different generations in the workforce. One of those being from the very beginning, meet people where they are, right? So where are you posting your jobs from the very beginning? Again, going back to some research, I would say boomers, they use some, previous resources that we used to find their next job, things like networking and word of mouth versus maybe Gen Zs or even, the Gen Alpha that's coming into play. They're going to be looking more towards social media to maybe find their next job, so really figuring out who you're trying to attract. And then, posting that job where there's going to be more of those candidates at. Um,
And
I
I'll just add here, I want to add here, because that's a great point, meeting people where they're at. A lot of the newer generations, they don't go outside the same way that the previous generations go outside and network and chat, and they have built up this, workplace network across all the companies that they've invested in. So we have to meet them online where they're looking every day. They're stuck behind that phone or that computer.
Mm.
And Sarah, I wanted to mention on the recruiting end, what are your thoughts on kind of how you're responding to people, the applicants that you want to screen? So are we calling? Are we sending emails? Are we doing the text message like, hey, book through this link? Like, what is the best approach there when we're talking multi-generational recruiting?
Yeah, and that's such a good question. So for me personally, I use style flexing, right? So being able to cater your communication style to the person you're talking to, customizing the way that you speak to people based on who it is. And again, these are just soft skills that, we utilize every day. But people just don't really think about it in the recruiting process because I think that we're so used to it being a certain way and it being so structured that we often really lose sight of different ways that we are able to customize it for different people in the workforce. And so for boomers, I would say email or call them. If you were to ask me about maybe say Gen X or millennials, email, text. I am in the process of texting a few candidates right now, and they respond really well to that. Text, chat, things like that are going to be something that is just easier to communicate with them. But also keeping in mind that, old school, I say old school, but it's not really old school, right? But email, having those over the phone conversations, again, sometimes that gives people the reassurance that they really need to know that they're actually talking to somebody real, especially with all the digital things that are happening, and recruiting and hiring. There's so many resources, AI resources that are out there right now. So again, that just gives people some reassurance that they're actually talking to a real person. So
It's a good point.
yeah.
Excellent points. I can see a printing company, someone especially in sales, taking this information and actually using that in the selling process too, not just recruiting, but how they are talking to potential clients or their customers, and depending on the generation that they are.
Yeah.
Really good points about how to communicate. Well, I think that wraps it up for today's podcast. Sarah and Emily, thank you so much for being guests on today's episode of the PICATalk podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us, Carrie.
Thank you. If you'd like more information on human resource related services PICA provides its members, like the partnership with Employers Advantage, simply call PICA at 704-357-1150 or visit our website at PICANet, PICANET.org. More information is available in the descriptions below. Please share this podcast and subscribe so you won't miss a single thing, whether it's on all the podcast platforms or on our YouTube channel. And don't forget that PICA's purpose is promoting the industry focused on member success. Have a great day.